What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with Reactions to the Classics, and today we got a reaction to Conor Oberst. This time, his solo album, Ruminations, brought to us by a friend, longtime supporter, patron of the channel, Bright Eyes, and Conor superfan, Caitlin. Thank you, Caitlin. Appreciate you. Appreciate all the patrons who make this thing go. If you'd like to support us in any way, check out the Patreon link below or the Patreon link on the end screen. We could not do it without the patrons who put up videos every single day. Well, I've had a long journey through the Bright Eyes catalog. Thanks to Caitlin and another one of our supporters, Vita, has brought some in there as well. But I've already done Upside Down Mountain and the self-titled, and those were awesome. So now we're up to Ruminations, and I absolutely love Conor Oberst. I'm a big lyricism guy, right? I mean, I love music that doesn't have great lyrics too, but I'm a big lyricism guy. I think Conor and another guy who, if you're a Conor fan, you might not know who this guy is, and you might not know who he is anyway, Jason Isbell. Those are the two. Conor and Jason Isbell, for me, are the best lyricists of this century. And that is a big statement because, as I said at the start, we put up videos every single day. I listen to a lot of music. So let's jump into Ruminations, seventh solo studio album released in October of 2016. An expanded edition of the album featuring 5 bonus tracks was released in July 2021. We are going to do the original studio version. On October 28, 2015, in the midst of the Desperacidos tour for their second studio album, Payola, it was announced that Conor had been hospitalized due to laryngitis, anxiety, and exhaustion, according to a press release. He also had a serious health scare involving a cyst in his brain. The entirety of that remaining tour was canceled. Conor returned to his hometown of Omaha, which is also my hometown. I moved there when I was 13, but still my hometown. He went there to recuperate, spent the following months in Omaha where he wrote and recorded the songs that make up this album, Ruminations. It's recorded in February of 2016 at Arc Studios in Omaha, with the recording process taking just 2 days, which is absolutely amazing if you know anything about recording albums. The album was engineered by Ben Broden, mixed by, of course, Mike Mogus, his Bright Eyes partner, and mastered by Bob Ludwig. Described as an acoustic album, the songs on the album solely feature Conor and consist of vocals, acoustic, piano, and harmonica. In a press release, Conor described this album's inception. He said, "I wasn't expecting to write a record. I honestly wasn't expecting to do much of anything. Winter in Omaha can have a paralyzing effect on a person, but in this case, it worked in my favor. I was just staying up late every night playing piano and watching the snow pile up outside the window. Next thing I knew, I had burned through all the firewood in the garage and had more than enough songs for a record. I recorded them quick to get them down, but then it just felt right to leave them alone." And Mike Mogus told Vulture he was, quote, "a little worried about Conor when he heard the demo." So this one, Conor will get into his emotions. This ought to be really, I'm looking forward to this, man. American Songwriter, which is a great publication, picked this at number 42 in their top 50 albums of 2016. All songs, obviously, written by Conor. So after I did the research on this, I do a lot more research. I just try to limit it down so you guys don't have to listen to me talk for 10 minutes before the music comes on. But this album has me fascinated. I've really been looking forward to recording it. So the music will not be in this video, but it'll be in a Vimeo link below. So if you want to follow along with me, please do that. If you don't, you already know the album real well. I just want to know what I think. Just hang out right here. Well, let's jump into it with the first track, Tachycardia, something I've suffered from before in my life, but it's defined as an excessively fast heart rate. Don't have anything else on this one. I do have stuff on a lot of these songs, but I'll have the lyrics up as always. And as I already told you, Conor's a master lyricist, so that's very important on this. Thanks again, Caitlin. Let's get it. Conor doing it all, man, hitting the harmonica, playing the piano. This song was fantastic. Tachycardia only appears there once, and it's because a sign of late signs of alcoholism, I was reading, tachycardia or accelerated heart rate is one of the telltale signs. That's not why I had it, just FYI. But so he says in this line, needs a cold draw to slow his tachycardia. So he needs to take that first drink of the day. He's not going through withdrawals anymore. It slows that heart rate down. In a dark bar, the world just melts away. And he feels fine if he can just lose track of time. It's a good sign when he can't stay awake. The lyrics in here are just fantastic. He's basically just saying how he's up against it, right? It starts out on the north face. It's a rope I've got to climb. Very difficult to climb the north face of a mountain. I'm a stone's throw from everyone I love and know, because he's in Omaha. It's all his family and friends are there, but I can't show up looking like I do because he's messed up. He just kind of talks about that. In a courtroom, sweat rolling down my back. It's a bad dream. I have it 7 times a week. No, it's not me, but I'm the one who has to die. So I don't know if it's a courtroom, because back in 2014, he was accused of sexual assault, which was then recanted by the accuser. But the damage that does to someone's reputation is horrific, right? Because so many people hear the first part and then always identify that person as a sexual predator, when in all reality it was a lie. But people always remember the first thing they hear, and then after that. So it's probably a call out to that, but I don't know that for sure. I didn't see where Conor spoke. He didn't speak much of this album. Usually you can find interviews and stuff, but maybe I just couldn't find those. Well, that one's going to be tough to beat, and we just started. But we're going to go with Barbary Coast, in parentheses, later. The title of the song refers to the red light district, which thrived during the second half of the 19th and early 20th centuries in San Francisco, featuring dance halls, concert salons, bars, jazz clubs, variety shows, and I mean, if it's a red light district, brothels, right? So let's go. Barbary Coast, in parentheses, later. Interesting just in the first two songs, how much the harmonica comes into play, because it's a very seldom used instrument in today's music, and definitely not used in ballads and like very gripping songs like these. Although obviously back in the 60s, Bob Dylan most famously used them for a lot of emotional songs. And even Springsteen uses them in some songs that are a little bit on the emotional side, but this is a whole nother level. But I think it draws you in even more. The lyrics, I mean, just being introspective is just fantastic. I mean, just the way he is writing. I mean, I'm not going to read them all to you, but I mean, I read a lot of lyrics on these reviews for Conor because, I mean, they're just unbelievable. But one of the lines that struck me is towards the end of, what would this be, the second verse. Because the modern world is a sight to see. It's a stimulant. It's pornography. It takes all my will not to turn it off. So he wants to remove from the world, but it's almost impossible to do it, right? Because we have phones, we have computers. I mean, you're watching this video right now on one of those two things, most likely, an iPad, whatever. So there's too much stimulation around, but he wants to remove himself from the world, whatever that means, whether to go into isolation, whether to leave the world. He said, I don't want you to feel sad, baby. I take everything back. I swear I do. Because once all the friends I had have used me up and left. So he already thinks all his friends are leaving and they don't really want him for him, right? They just want to use him up. I bet you hang around. I bet you'll hang around a while. He just finishes like that and plays a harmonica. I think that's a great way to leave this song kind of hanging there. Next up, we have Gossamer Thin. All right, Gossamer Thin. Gossamer is the short-lived spider silk of early dawn. So something really thin, obviously. So he starts out talking about basically heroin use, and his fans are confused. His friends are alarmed. His wife doesn't talk, hates when he's gone. Counts every skirt in his new entourage, afraid he's going to be, have infidelity. And the chorus, and they're all gossamer thin, left of the dial bohemians, and they dance tournament style, twirl around the room, curtsy and smile, and they sit at his feet, read poetry, and swoon with each word he speaks, speaking about the entourage of girls, I think. And then, goes on and talks some other thing about the bridge. Now I walk around in some kind of altered state. The drink in my hand is starting to shake. So it's a throwback to tachycardia, I think. The drink in his hand is starting to shake. What do we learn, boys and girls, in tachycardia? That you start to shake when you're in really bad alcohol abuse and you haven't had a drink yet, right? You're going through alcohol withdrawal. So I get used to it. If this has to stay this way, a new bunch of flowers I'll have to arrange. I don't want to eat or get out of bed. I try to recall what the therapist said. Ego and id, the essential self. You are who you are, and you are someone else. You are who you are to yourself, and then you're someone else around other people. And then he just keeps talking, throw me a brick, see if it breaks. There's a glass psyche at stake, because the mind and the brain aren't quite the same, but they both went out of this place. Your brain and your mind are actually not quite the same. I won't go into all of that, but they both went out of this place. So he's probably talking about either out of a situation or the suicidal thoughts that he's admitted to struggling with at times. Now we got Counting Sheep. Before he played this song at Massey Hall in Toronto, he said, this next one, so this song, is a deranged lullaby. I don't recommend you play it for children under a certain age, but it makes me sleepy. So that doesn't really tell us what it's about, but it's an interesting quote. All right, Counting Sheep. No harmonic on this one, just an acoustic, right, pulling us in. This one is, all these songs are almost devastating, right? With the power and the emotion of them and the things that Conor's going through. But this one I personally related to greatly, to parts of it. You just start, he's not pulling any punches, closing my eyes, counting sheep, gun in my mouth, trying to sleep. Everything ends, everything has to. Get well balloon, going insane, weight of the world, paper mache, gone with the wind, out into nothing. That I'm just trying to be easy, agreeable. I don't want to seem needy to anyone, including you. And tomorrow is shining like a razor blade, and anything's possible if you feel the same. Temperature's cool, blood pressure's fine, 121/75. Scream if you want, no one can hear. And then just, I want to be easy, acceptable. I don't want to seem needed to anyone, especially you, especially you. So I've had rheumatoid arthritis for 16 years, and I also have fibromyalgia. My partner in crime on this channel, Trey, really suffers with the fibromyalgia portion of the illness. But, I deal with this, right? Because I'm in pain all the time. My wife's very supportive and great, but, do you want to really hear every day when she asks me, how you doing? Do you really want to hear, oh, I'm in a lot of pain. I slept 3 hours last night, because I don't sleep. Like, I sleep like 5 hours a night tops. My body just won't let me sleep any longer, and I wake up because of the pain. It could be a lot worse. I'm going to ask you if you feel sorry for me. It could be a lot worse. But identify any of us that are in pain, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, relational, financial, whatever it is. Pain's pain, guys. It just manifests itself in different ways, right? But I just identify with this, right? You don't want to be telling everybody all the time, oh, I'm in pain. I'm fine, man. I'm good. Because in a lot of ways in my head I am. But if I sit there and think, well, this hurts and this hurts and the psychological toll that chronic pain takes on you is just, it grinds you down. One of the reasons why I love this channel, it gives me a focus. I love music, diving into this stuff, but probably more than you wanted to hear about me through a Conor song. But I'm just telling you how I identify with it. I get it. Wasn't going through what Conor's going through, but I get it, man. It's the same thing. Like, you just kind of want to blend in and, oh, I'm fine, because you don't want to be a burden to those around you. So powerful song. Next up, we got a song that, every once in a while Conor has some really strange song titles. Mama Borthwick, in parentheses, a sketch. I have no idea what this one holds. All right, Mama Borthwick. This is one of the ways just that Conor is just brilliant, right? This is really about Frank Lloyd Wright and some of the different things that he built, but he puts in his own emotional struggles of what he's going through and why in each one of these verses. So Mama Borthwick, who I've never heard of in my life, was a feminist and translator from Iowa, but Frank Lloyd Wright designed her house like that she had with her husband. So that's how they met and became lovers. And then the next line on that, shining brow of Taliesin, which is the estate, the house built upon by Frank Lloyd Wright in 1911. He intended it to be his residence with Mama Borthwick, but in August of 1914, a recently hired servant set fire to a wing of the house and murdered 7 people with an axe during the blaze, including Borthwick and her 2 children. So he uses that as kind of a dual symbol for success and danger, right? A fortune spent, but that's irrelevant to build something that's sacred till the end. It cost $20 to visit Falling Water, which is a house that he designed in 1935. A lot of people consider it to be like almost a perfect house. But the irony is no one lives there, right? No one lives there. It's that house that's perfect, but no one lives there. And so he says, it would take a time machine to fulfill all my fantasies, because a hidden dream can be embarrassing. And the only thing that's sacred till the end. So some things he's got to keep to himself. And then the earthquake, shout out, and the Imperial Hotel stand. So, and then the Guggenheim. I'm not content, but I'm feeling hesitant to build something that's sacred till the end. So Conor doesn't know if he's going to have it in him or wants to build something that's sacred till the end, like Frank Lloyd Wright's architecture stance. So just a very, very intelligently written song. Rain follows the plow. Just a song where he's talking about teenage rebellion, basically. Broke all the rules at Catholic school. He went to a school called Creighton Prep. Turned to a life of crime. When I stole that motorbike, I left tears behind. Casual sex, smoked cigarettes through caution of the wind. Was a winding path that I always planned to get back to you again. And so he's talking about all these things. And the last verse, well, I don't need God or common law to tell me what right from wrong, because when you press me to your chest, I know where I belong. Different piano melody in there after the second verse. He really got into it more than the low-key stuff on everything else so far. A good song, not going to end up on my favorites, but like all of them, very well written. Except we have a little uncanny. All right, a little uncanny. So this song is so well written. I like the way it ended, right? The outro, the coda of really going in on the harmonica and the acoustic in a much more violent manner, but the acoustic reigning throughout. And there's so many things. He starts out talking about Jane Fonda and kind of her life. And she was opposed to the Vietnam War, but that got a lot of vitriol in the United States where I live. I don't remember it, but a lot of people going against her. But it's had millions of admirers, but not a single friend. And it's a little uncanny what she managed to do, become a symbol for a pain she never knew. Obviously, she wasn't drafted in the Vietnam War. And then some shots here that some people in America would go crazy over. Old Ronnie Reagan, he was a shoe salesman's son. He got himself in the movies. He impressed everyone. He thought trial by fire was America's fate, the way he escalated the Cold War with Russia. He made a joke of the poor people, and that made him a saint. In other words, he did a lot of things that damaged poor people and caused the wealth gap in my country to just go huge, right? So he called it trickle down economics. If we make the rich richer, it'll trickle down. The middle class will get richer. The lower class will get richer. It's all a facade. All that happened was the richer got rich and everybody else stayed here. And there's a bigger gap in the wealth that still exists today and is even greater than it was then. But he was tan enough. He was rich enough. He was handsome like John Wayne. And there was no one at the country club who didn't feel the same. So a throwback to the previous line where he made a joke of the poor people and that made him a saint. So all the people, honestly, that look like me, that are in their 50s and white, just loved what he was doing. So he got all of this support. Sounds like somebody else I know right now in my political realm of things here in the United States. But I'll leave that for another day because you didn't watch this to get politics. But hey, Conor started it, right? So that was great in there. But it's a little uncanny what he managed to do. Got me to read those Russian authors through and through. So Conor went the opposite way and just read the other side. Then he says all the people he misses. But I'll get strong enough, I'll be man enough to keep myself in check. Because all my friends that flew to town said that's what they'd expect. But it's a little uncanny what they managed to do. Maybe admit to things I knew were never true. So I think his friends probably came to stage an intervention, right? But that song's fire. Next up, we have next of kin. That's a person's closest living relative or relatives, right? The first verse explores sudden tragedy and its effects on those close to it through the lens of a man whose partner suddenly died. The rest of the song continues to explore the themes of innocence, love, and loss. That's what this description says. We'll find out for ourselves. But during his show at the Brooklyn Bowl in Las Vegas, Conor quickly asked if people were familiar with what next of kin meant, and then went on to comment that making that call would effing suck, and that if it were him, it'd just be her, gesturing backstage, getting the call, his wife at the time. Next of kin, another wonderful use of the harmonica. I mean, I would have never thought I'd come across an album that has so much harmonica on it, but from this time period, 2016, but so good. The first verse, I saw crashing in the interstate. It left a feeling I could not shake. Just a name in a database. You must be notified. It's not a phone call I want to make. A stranger answers. I hesitate. Got some bad news that couldn't wait. Are you sitting down? Her bathrobe hangs on the bedroom door, though she's been dead for a year or more. He buried her by the sycamore tree just so that he could keep her close. It broke his heart and made him old. Tries to rebuild, but it just erodes. Some people say that's the way it goes, but he don't feel that way. It's just the devastation, right, of, this guy lost his wife, I'm guessing, and, he can't recover. Even though he tries, he just can't. It reminds me of a song, the song that ends, I'm a huge Bruce Springsteen fan. He's my favorite all-time artist. He's got a song on an album called The River from 1980. It's a double album. The very last song on the album, song number 20, is called Wreck on the Highway. He comes across a wreck on the highway and sees it, and it really makes him ponder his mortality and what's important. This reminded me exactly of that. And then he's kind of talking about himself in the second verse. Got too drunk, couldn't perform. Yeah, I met Lou Reed and Patti Smith. It didn't make me feel different. I guess I lost all my innocence way too long ago. Careful with the idolatry, right, that you have. And then she called my bluff and she won the fight. So he ran outside and he went home. So I don't know, a breakup with the girl. So he saw death. Then he confronted his own demons. And now he's trying to get with the girl and she's shunning him. That's kind of the maturation of this song, how it plays out. And next of kin, because there's a literal death in verse 1, a death of his innocence in verse 2, and a death of his relationship in verse 3. Now, I may be reading way more into that than what there is, but with Conor, man, his lyrics are so deep. I don't even share with you guys 10% of it because there's so many literary references and stuff. So much like Dylan, if you study Dylan lyrics from the 60s. But all right, 2 songs left. We got You All Loved Him Once. Conor detailed the meaning of this song. He says George Harrison, John Lennon. It's a continuing theme in human history where they elevate people to this unsustainable place and then they kill them. They killed both. Well, they tried to kill George. And John, well, they killed John. And then they effing tried to kill George. Somebody broke into his house and nearly killed him. I mean, he was in bad shape. George died of cancer in 2001, but he almost died from the break-in at his house. All right, You All Loved Him Once. So I think a little autobiographical. I see Conor in this. I'm just saying basically that these people love this guy. The people at his audience that he's singing to, you love this guy. When he provided you everything, he was doing stuff for you, and then it was time to take a stand, and you scattered with the rats. So it can be Conor. I also think of Dylan. I mean, I mentioned Dylan and the similarities in the styles here a little bit on songwriting and even with the harmonica and instrumentation on this album. And Dylan was famously just so much backlash when he went electric. So you kind of think about that here. And then Conor said at a concert, this goes out to, who did he say? He said, Jesus Christ, Julius Caesar, John Lennon, and all those who have been murdered and persecuted. I mean, I think You All Loved Him Once. Imagine that. Was that a shout out on one of those verses to John? Obviously, his most famous solo song, Imagine. So, really, really well written song, man. I mean, not that that's a surprise. We got one song left. We got Till Saint Dymphna Kicks Us Out. This went to 72 in the US, so it actually charted in the US. Saint Dymphna is this patron saint of depression, mental illness, and emotional distress, and also a bar in New York. As a whole, this is an ode to the people who chronically inhabit bars and the reasons for being there, which Conor correlates to be some mental illness or anything that oppresses them weighs heavy on their mind. During a show in Omaha, Conor stated St. Dymphna's, I'll get it, in New York is where he used to hang out a lot when he lived there. His friend worked at the bar for years and has since purchased it. All right, let's finish out this fantastic album. Till St. Dymphna Kicks Us Out. It really is all about kind of addiction and surrounding yourself with other people who are addicted, because no one's going to tell you not to do this. You kind of just spur each other on. So that's kind of what he's talking about. We're going to keep doing this until we're kicked out of the bar, right? The world is made of blinking lights. They're changing all the time, but depending on who you're talking to, it's likely to be fine. I watched you go from bad to worse. The blues is here to stay, but sometimes it's the simple things that make it all okay. Probably the substance abuse, right? Let's get enabled. Great minds, they think alike. I never was a good judge of when to call it a night. Oh, so you don't have to say it, so you're thinking it out loud. Some things go south and they never turn around. But if you want a confidant, I never let you down. Oh, yes, we can keep drinking till St. Dymphna kicks us out. Yes, we can keep drinking till St. Dymphna kicks us out. So an interesting way to end the album. More vocal inflection on this song. You know, he got into it a little bit more. Reminded me, not totally, right? Not a total copy, not real close, but a little Billy Joel inspired on this song. All right, now we get to my favorite tracks. This is going to be a big time struggle. This album's fantastic, right? This album's fantastic. Honorable mentions: You All Loved Him Once, Next of Kin, and Gossamer Thin. Faves are going to be A Little Uncanny, Counting Sheep, which was, I had such a personal connection to that song. Maybe that song's not as good as I think it is, but you know how it goes. If you have a personal connection to a song, it elevates up and your objectivity kind of flies out the window. Barbary Coast / Later. And the first track, Tachycardia, it's not my favorite. It might be my favorite on here. I don't know. That or Counting Sheep. So that's a lot of favorites. Now we're going to move to my overall score. Look, I told you at the beginning, I love Conor. Every time I hear more Conor, I love him more. And I think this album in particular, just him, so raw, so emotional, but so real, right? There's artists that can write songs that are great songs, but when it's your own experience, it takes on a different level, man. You feel it, right? And his writing, and I say it every time, but you got to hear it. It might be the first time you've ever heard of Conor Oberst. You're just a subscriber to the channel. His writing is just absolutely next level. It's Dylan-esque, right? It's not Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan's on a plateau of his own, but it is it's just so good. The literary references, the things you got to really read into. Like I said, I don't go into all that here, guys, because this would be a 3-hour video, but so good. I'm gonna give this. I mean, it's hard to even say what my favorite album of Conor's is now at this point. I'm gonna give this an 8.5. To me, that's objectively. Subjectively, I think it's even better than that. But objectively, I got to try to be objective in this. It's an 8.5. It's fantastic, man. So thank you to Caitlin for bringing this. Thank you, everybody, for watching. What do you guys think of this album below? Where do you rank it in Conor's solo catalog? And then even against the Bright Eyes stuff, right? Just where do you think this thing ranks? I think part of it's going to be how well do you relate to it, right? That's like I said, that elevates things content for us. But where's it rank for you? But thanks again, Caitlin. Thanks, everybody, for joining me. Until next time, I will see you.